meeting to order and ask you to join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask Misty if you'd call the roll, please.
Dave Burris. Ray Eckelty.
Here.
Bill Lukens.
Here.
Bob Nelson.
Here.
Ron Richards.
Here.
Allison Ritterbusch. Here. Craig Romy.
Present.
Caitlin Turner. Here. Thank you.
Okay, we do have a quorum. For the agenda tonight, I'd like to add an executive session for personnel. I'd ask for a motion to approve or adopt the agenda with the addition of the executive session.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda with the addition of an executive session for personnel.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved, and again, I remind each council person that if there is a conflict of interest, please notify the entire council prior to voting. You have in your packages the minutes from the February 3rd council meeting. I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Make a motion we approve the minutes from the February 3rd council meeting.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve those minutes. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. You have in your packages under claims, bills in between for $159,277.01. I'd ask for a motion to approve those bills in between.
I'd make a motion to approve the bills in between in the amount of $159,277.01.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the bills in between. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bills in between are approved. You do have current claims for $172,469.55. I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the current claims for $172,469.55.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the current claims. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Current claims are approved. You also have under 2019 accounts payable an amount of $75.84. I'd ask for a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve 2019 accounts payable for $75.84.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve that amount for the 2019 accounts payable. Any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Next item on our agenda is communications from the public, and Beth Spitzer has signed up to speak to us about Keep Hot Springs Beautiful and Christmas lights. Hi, Beth.
Hello, am I supposed to come up here?
Yes, and if you could make sure you get close to the mic so that we can get it on the recording. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, I am Beth Spitzer. I am the president of Keep Hot Springs Beautiful. And I am here to talk about two different topics tonight. And kind of the overarching theme of both of the things I want to present is I'm asking if Keep Hot Springs Beautiful and the city can work together. The first thing I want to address is Christmas lights. And I want to read from the January 30th edition of the Fall River County Herald-Star. And it said, this was reporting on the city council meeting in January. It said, Parks, Recreation, Beautification, and Cultural Development Committee Chair Dave Burris discussed the Christmas lights which were purchased by Keep Hot Springs Beautiful for the city for them to store, hang up, and take down annually. He said there is considerable cost to the city in doing that, and it's become an issue, so they are hoping to work with Keep Hot Springs Beautiful to find a way of taking that burden off of the city's shoulders, and once again having their organization care for them, similar to how they once did. I'm really disappointed that Dave Burris isn't here tonight, because this article was the first I knew of any problem, and I have yet to be contacted. And the huge amount of misinformation in this it's huge, huge amount of misinformation, and that's why I feel like I had to come to try to correct the misinformation that was in this article. The only Christmas lights that Keep Hot Springs Beautiful is involved with are the ones in Centennial Park, and this made it sound like, you know, we're doing all the Christmas lights, and that's not the case. And I want to give a little history. Back in 2015, there was an effort by Christmas in the Hills. It was called Light Up Our Town. If any of you were here then, you might remember hearing all about it. It was supported by the mayor, the city administrator, and the city council at that time. And Christmas in the Hills came to one of our Keep Hot Springs Beautiful board meetings, and they asked us to participate in this. And we as a board decided that we would take on Centennial Park. And so Keep Hot Springs Beautiful wrote a check to the city, and the city purchased the lights. And so the lights are city property. Since that time, Keep Hot Springs Beautiful has always put up the lights in Centennial Park with the help of volunteers. The closing sentence of this article said that Keep Hot Springs Beautiful should care for the lights similar to how they once did. We have never cared for the lights because they don't belong to us, as I have already stated. They belong to the city, and there's never been a change in the process since 2015. The city stores the lights because they're city property. We volunteered to put the lights up. The city takes them down. So there's been no change to that process. I guess what I would like out of this is that if Keep Hot Springs Beautiful comes up in a committee, I would really appreciate it if we could be contacted and ask for clarification before things are stated publicly that are inaccurate. And it really, when we opened up the paper and read that, it just felt like a blindside, and that we aren't appreciated for the efforts that Keep Hot Springs Beautiful does for this community. We feel like we're helping the city, and the article almost makes it sound like we're perceived as some sort of drain on the city. And I certainly don't feel that we are, and I certainly hope you don't think that we are. Especially after now that I've provided some clarification about that. So that's all I wanted to say about the Christmas lights, unless you had some questions about that.
Beth, first of all, apologize for all of that misinformation. I'm sorry Dave's not here also, but we'll certainly look into it and get it cleared up. We appreciate what Keep Hot Springs Beautiful does for our city, along with Christmas in the Hills. I think we're one of the most picturesque and beautiful cities around the holidays of any place in the Black Hills area. And I know there's been a lot of people that have put a lot of effort behind that, including our city crews. And so I will look into it. Again, I apologize for that misinformation being in the paper. Also, I think the committee that works through that is our Parks and Recs committee, and probably, and I'm not sure if there was any representation at that committee, and that's perhaps where that misinformation was relayed.
You're asking, was Keep Hot Springs Beautiful? Is Keep Hot Springs Beautiful on the Parks Committee? We're not on the
Okay.
Parks Committee.
And that's probably where that misinformation was generated in. through that Parks and Recs report. So we'll try to get that squared around and straightened out. And again, we appreciate you bringing that before the council.
All right, thank you. Then I do have another topic as well. Misty, would you mind passing it around? Sure. I have a presentation that I'm going to have Misty pass out so that you can all kind of follow along. This topic now is going to be about the highway project and how it affects the downtown street corner pods. So I'll wait until you all have a copy. All right, so if you turn to the very first page there, I do just want to thank all of you for your willingness to serve the community of Hot Springs on the City Council. Keep Hot Springs Beautiful, we realize what a difficult role that you have. We know that funds are often have to be stretched very thin. You have lots of requests and needs before you. This is a small town, we're not a wealthy town, and we realize those struggles that you have to face. And that's why we, Keep Hot Springs Beautiful, want to extend a hand to help. And so that's what this is going to be about. To give you a little background, the next page, if you don't know, Keep Hot Springs Beautiful, we are the ones who coordinate the Pod Squad. The Pod Squad are the volunteers who maintain the downtown street corner pods. And the Pod Squad started in 2003. It was formed due to the neglect of the pods. And just to give you some history here, we've known since 2013 about the highway project coming through the city. And I spoke at that first DOT meeting that was in June of 2013. I advocated for the pods at that time. And I've been doing that ever since. So it's been a very long time that we have been advocating for those pods to remain. And actually in 2019, Mayor Cotty asked me to speak at the DOT meeting in Rapid City that was held in July, and I did that. And that was reported about in the paper. And also, just to reiterate again, Keep Hot Springs Beautiful has paid for new plants, for mulch, for compost. We put thousands of dollars worth of money into the pods. The next page outlines for you, because I don't know if you are aware of what our plans are for the future regarding the highway project. So our plans are to dig up the plants in the pods in the fall of 2020, in October of 2020. So after the Pod Squad season, the pod season is done this year, we plan to dig them up because we hope to preserve those plants that we have spent all that money on. And we have found private property that's fenced where we are going to move those plants to. And it's also very beneficial, of course, to have mature plants if we get the pods back, to replant those, to have mature plants to plant. We have always raised money. We will continue to raise money for plants, trees, shrubs, mulch, and compost through our fundraisers. We may have to do new fundraisers, but also we want to write grants for those same items. We've been researching grant opportunities. And we have several that we plan to apply for. We're particularly looking for ones that are more focused for the local area because we feel we would have a more competitive edge. If you apply for national grants, much harder to get, of course, because you're competing against thousands of people. So we're really trying to locate ones that we would hopefully be more willing to get, because of course getting the grant is one of the big battles, of course, when you do that. Next page is, however, where we get to kind of the meat of this presentation. We are feeling that the collaboration with the city right now is in question. During 2019, the mayor had sent an email to us, to Keep Hot Springs Beautiful, telling us that a committee was going to be formed, which would be used to discuss the highway project and coordinate with the DOT. I submitted my name. I gave him another person on my board if I couldn't be at a meeting that they could fill in my place. But when I followed up, I was told that that committee was not going to happen. So that never did occur. And that was unfortunate because we were really looking forward to that, to being able to have that voice as that project moved forward. Then in December of 2019, I had a meeting with the city administrator. Bob Nelson was there, and also Lori Sherrard, who's an employee with the city. And during that meeting, we were told to prioritize the pods as if some of the pods were going to be eliminated. And I was very, I questioned that. I didn't question it at the time, but in my mind I was questioning it because I had already received plans from the DOT with the drawings of the pods. And so I knew that the downtown street corner pods were not much changing. They were staying in the same location in most cases. There's only a few that we knew of that were being eliminated. So that didn't quite add up to me of why I was being asked to prioritize pods and as if some would be eliminated. And then lastly, the DOT project design manager requested the presidents of Keep Hot Springs Beautiful at a meeting which was to be held at City Hall on February 6th of 2020 and to discuss the highway project. He asked for us to be there, and the city did not invite us, even though he requested us to be there. So this is why I'm saying that collaboration seems to be in question. If you go to the next page, just to reiterate again, to be able to write grants, we need to know answers to many different questions, such as how many trees can be purchased, how many pods are there going to be, what size are they going to be, so that we can plan accordingly and get estimates. But so far, we've been held in the dark as to what is happening. And the DOT has said that the deadline for the final plan is July 1st of 2020. That's coming up. So we're running out of time. And we don't want things to happen like they did last time when the pods were first installed. The city planted inappropriate trees that couldn't thrive. They planted shrubs that grew over the height requirement, creating visibility issues, and put river rock in the pods, making it difficult to weed them. And we spent the next many years getting the river rock out of the pods. On the next page, you will see pictures. These are drawings from the actual DOT plans. And so it shows you that the bump outs or the pods are part of the DOT plan. The question that the DOT is asking is, are these going to be filled with landscaping or are they going to be concrete? That's what they need to know. And if you look there below the drawing, it shows you that the dotted line is the existing curb and the red shows the new bump out boundary. So you're going to see that the pods are increasing in size significantly. Many of them are. On the next page is my question to you. What is your vision for Hot Springs and how are you going to make it happen? I have a picture there of a downtown area, and if you notice, there's trees in front of those businesses. And that's a vision that Keep Hot Springs Beautiful has, and I don't know if that's a vision that you have. Have you pictured what Hot Springs could look like after this project goes through? We've heard lots of negative things about the highway project, but actually we look at it as an opportunity. What a wonderful opportunity Hot Springs has to make our downtown area beautiful. And that's what we would love to see, is those trees there for one thing, and of course the pods as well. If you look Below the picture, there's a quote, and I take this from the VibrantCitiesLab.com website. I really encourage you to go to that if you have time. It's a wonderful website that really shows the benefits of trees to communities, and it has a quote there. It says, shoppers in business districts with robust tree canopy will spend 9 to 12 times more for products, travel further, and spend more time there. So not only is there a reason for there to be trees due to beautification efforts, beautification reasons, but also economic reasons. For our downtown businesses, it would be an increase in income for them, potentially. So think about that. On the next page there, just a reminder of how important volunteers are to Hot Springs. Keep Hot Springs Beautiful has the passion to make Hot Springs beautiful, but we're wondering if the city wants us to turn our focus elsewhere. How can we be expected to fundraise and write grants if we don't even know what we are fundraising and writing grants for? There will be limited ability for Keep Hot Springs Beautiful to have trees in the pods due to site triangle requirements at intersections. So is the city willing to add trees in front of the businesses where site restrictions are not an issue? Is the city willing to add trees in the new open area that will be formed between Chicago and the realigned 6th Street? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I have drawings I can show you about that. But there's going to be a large area that could potentially have trees there. Specific tree locations are to be submitted to the DOT for approval. So that's again why decisions need to be made now. Lastly, last question there is, can we work together to establish a beautiful hot springs for future generations? That's the real thing we want you to be thinking about too, is just how important this is for so many years in the future. This isn't just something temporary. It's something that's going to last for a very long time. This is going to be a very significant project. So we really hope that that the best can be done with that project. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do have some comments. First of all, some of your accusations there that the committee did never happen, I apologize for that. But again, we've had turmoil within having a city administrator. The previous city administrator was to chair that committee and was not able to because she left. I don't know that you were not invited to the, I thought that you were invited to the meeting that was held at City Hall. Oftentimes when we've asked you to come, you cannot make meetings or during the daytime because of your employment.
I was not invited, Mayor.
And I'll check with our city administrator to ensure that you do. We have had issues that Hot Springs Beautiful has been contacting the state DOT, and that's caused quite a bit of confusion and concern on their part to know who is driving the train, and as far as location of crosswalks, pods, and so forth, there's been some confusion. So we ask that all communication with DOT comes through the city of Hot Springs. The other thing that, excuse me, the other thing that I would like to say about the trees, we'd love to have trees, but the way that the design is now, particularly on River Street, we've got a 6 foot or 8 foot at most sidewalk. There's absolutely no room for trees. And unless we get approved by the Department of Transportation and approved by this council, the suspended sidewalk, we're not going to have any kind of room for any kind of trees along North River Street because of the width of the road and the way that current design lines out. Currently, we're working with DOT to define crosswalks and ensure those locations, and certainly we want to keep you all in the loop, and we'll make sure that you have the ability to come to the meetings and let your voice be heard, because again, I want to thank the job that you do in keeping the community beautiful. Those pods are, I've seen people stopping, taking pictures, and so forth, and they're a very, very big addition. So we certainly want to make sure that we have your input and get this done correctly.
So I have several comments in response. Mr. Mayor, you have told me so many times just what you just did, how you appreciate us, but actions speak louder than words. Your actions have not demonstrated your appreciation. Your comment that, was I invited, I absolutely was not invited. And if I had been invited, I would have taken time off of work to be there. And in fact, I met with the DOT engineer that afternoon because he requested to, and I took time off of work to meet with him. So I'm very disappointed that you would think that I wouldn't, because I absolutely would. And the comment that you made about their causing confusion, so you had sent an email to me saying to not communicate with the DOT. So I need to kind of give some background to you all, and I really apologize if this is going to get long, but I need to be able to defend myself. So as he had alluded to, you have gone through transition from Kim Barbieri, city administrator, to now John Gregory. When Kim Barbieri was here, she was very active in the pod. She had designs about the pod. She spoke at our Keep Hot Springs Beautiful banquet. I mean, she was very much in support, okay? She was advocating for the pods with the DOT. Our last meeting with her was May 3rd, and that was right before she was going to meet with the DOT the very next week. And after she had that meeting, she said she wanted to meet with us, but it wouldn't be till July because she was going on extended medical leave. So in July, I went to follow up and found out that she was no longer with the city. And I was in a bit of a panic because we knew that this meeting hadn't happened. She had told us it was going to be about the pods, and I didn't know what had happened with that meeting. So I started trying to find out who I needed to contact. I sent an email to the mayor. I asked him who my contact should be, and I didn't get an answer. I just found out that I should speak at the DOT meeting in Rapid, so I did. At that meeting, at Rapid, then I started asking at the DOT people, who should I be talking to? Who would be the contact? Who was in this meeting with Kim? So that's where I got the name of the project manager. And at that time, we didn't have a city administrator, so I started communicating with that DOT engineer, and that's how I got the drawings for the pods, and we started that conversation because I hadn't been given the answer from the mayor, and we started that conversation. So then city administrator wasn't hired until the end of August. And I met with him the very first week and introduced myself. I talked to him about the things that the Keep Hot Springs Beautiful does and how we coordinate with the city. And then out of the blue, I received an email, and this was dated in November, and it was from the mayor saying that I shouldn't be communicating with DOT, and said those exact words that he just said. He said that I was causing concern and confusion with the DOT. Well, because I'd had this relationship with the DOT project manager, it was just so baffling to me because we'd had a great rapport going. So it was just so weird. I was like, did I really misread this whole relationship? So I turned around and sent that email to the project manager, and I said, I guess I can't communicate with you anymore based on this email, because I wanted to see if he indeed was expressing concern and confusion. And he said, I got a similar email, and I just want you to know I have not ever expressed concern or confusion over your emails back.
That's an incorrect statement. We do have, and that was the message that I got, and that's why the email was sent.
Well, I can only
And
attest
that,
to
right
what
now,
I
we're
was
not going to
given.
resolve this here tonight in a council meeting. We appreciate your presentation, and if you have further concerns about the design, you're perfectly welcome to our Public Works meeting where these issues are being taken up. But we're not going to take council time up because we're not going to be able to solve everything here tonight.
So may,
Yes, please.
okay, if I'm understanding this right, it looks like, I'm looking at the email that looks like it was from the DOT to you specifically and John. And so I see that we have been given a July 1st deadline and you've received this, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so if I'm understanding you right, Mayor, we're saying that our goal will be working through Public Works to get all of these questions.
Correct.
Okay, and that Keep Hot Springs Beautiful we want to open them up to come to Public Works to participate in that. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the way we work those issues.
Okay, I didn't know that it was in Public Works at this point, so that was the first time I heard that, so I just wanted to make sure I clarified where all of these questions were going to be resolved and followed through with.
And is that, Bob, is that your committee?
Yes, and I do have some questions for you before you leave.
You guys can just stay around, you're saying?
No, I'd like to ask.
He's going to do it
Oh,
now.
okay.
That means Bob's going to do it now.
Well,
No, that's what I was just making sure that, because I had those questions as far as this email that we had as well, so.
yes, so to answer your question directly, yes, Public Works is where I would expect this to come through first. So I want to go back to your collaboration in question. We were talking about a December 13th meeting with the city administrator, myself, and Lori. Yes. I had a different sense of the questions that were put to you, and specifically the question that I put to you. I'm not saying that what you heard is wrong, but you were talking about Keep Hot Springs Beautiful was asked to prioritize the pods and if some pods would be eliminated. My recollection of the conversation was the number of pods going to get any bigger? And you had said, no, you didn't think that would happen because you thought you were kind of maxed out with the volunteers that you would get for the pods that you had. And I remember that. Am I remembering that correctly?
Well, I mean, yes,
Okay.
we do not want there to be a lot more, but the pods have already been established, so I
Okay,
guess
no,
I'm not sure.
Be patient with me here.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that what I recall of the conversation is the same that you're recalling. So when you had mentioned that, no, you didn't think they were going to grow, I did put the question to you, not in prioritize, but I said, is there a possibility to reduce a pod or two? And the one that I've spoken to you about specifically is the one between Ace Hardware and the building just to the north of it. I've heard from a lot of folks that particular intersection, when you're approaching it coming from the east, if you stop where you're supposed to, then the buildings are obstructing your line of sight. And my thought at the time was, well, pods contributed to that also. So that was my general question to you is, are you open to eliminating pods if there are safety concerns? And you said, absolutely. But I didn't, my intent of the question was not to hold you folks to, we want some pods reduced. But are you open to reducing some pods that may be a safety issue?
It wasn't coming from you, Bob. The question came from the city administrator, is who I'm referring to.
Okay.
He asked specifically that for me to get him a list of prioritized pods.
Okay, but I want to take ownership of my question to you about possibly eliminating them, because I did ask you that question. Okay, so then I want to go back to conclude in that, looking at the bump outs that you have drawn, and again, that was the concern. The bump outs there are getting particularly, a lot bigger. And then you mentioned that you had gotten the email from Neil that all of us have seen. Are you satisfied with the responses in the email from Neil?
I am satisfied on some of them. I will say that we, for instance, the attachment with the trees, we think that there are probably better tree selections out there, because some of the ones that he had listed, like the crabapple, that's what we already have in the pods, and they have not done well at all, and quite frankly, several of them were like fruit tree type of things, so those would not be a good selection. So I think there's actually, we can talk to the master gardeners and things like that, that they could give us some better options with the trees. So, but this is another thing is, I guess this is another part of the thing is that the city has to be willing to fight for the trees, and I'm hearing from the mayor that that they're not going to have the trees in front of the businesses, and I think that's sad. I travel to I have family in Colorado Springs. I go through Lyman, Colorado, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Lyman, Colorado, but it has a 4-lane highway right through its downtown, and they have trees lining the road. And I asked Neil about that, and he said, of course, it's Colorado, so it could have different rules, but he said the city could have gotten an exception. And it's about, is the city willing to fight for it or not, really? And so it is possible to have trees on a highway in a downtown area, but is there a willingness for that or not?
So I still want to go back to Neil's letter, email back to you. Are you satisfied with the bullet points that he addressed, the answers that he gave? My specific reason for asking the question, Beth, is my recollection of these questions are the ones that you put to the city administrator, to myself and John, that you still needed to have addressed as the road was coming through. So when I see these here in his email, John had said he was going to go back and ask those questions directly. So that's where these responses are coming from. And to your point, the first bullet point, DOT does not want trees on the pods at the intersections. And they explain why. It's line of sight. So they're giving us guidance there. But then they also go on to say that there is new info. Locations such as in the open area between Chicago and the real line 6th Street, or in the same locations along River Street where trees are today are acceptable. So they're giving us some guidelines where trees can be and where trees can't be. But we are bumping up against the reality that DOT is going to drive this. We can make, if the council wants to ask for exceptions, they can certainly do that. Speaking only for myself, I'm not against trees where trees make sense, where trees will work and trees aren't going to jeopardize safety. So the other thing we had talked about at the meeting on December 13th, I hope I made it clear that Public Works would be the group to work through this. So if you had any questions, we meet every 2 weeks. Come to us. You don't need an invitation. They're open meetings. They're open to the public. If you have questions for us, come to the meetings. We'll work through that. I think a lot of this is just passing ships in the night. We're missing each other, but there's a way forward to this. I don't think I'm not going to speak for the rest of the council. I'd like to work with you and see what we can come up with. We just need to have those conversations.
And so just one other thing is that it does say there that there are locations along River Street where trees are today, and I'm assuming he's talking about the 2 trees in front of the law office. So that's an example of where there are trees in front of the businesses. So,
If those trees, Beth, if those trees, if the current DOT design goes through, those trees will be in the middle of the parking area. That sidewalk on that side of the street, the business side of the street, will be 6 to 8 feet. Bumper overhangs, traffic lanes will be 11 feet, and there will be a parallel parking on the other side, and a 6-foot sidewalk with a guardrail to protect people from the flood wall. That's the way the current design is. those trees will have to come down because they'll be in the parking area. If you look at the measure out 6 feet from the edge of the building, you'll see that they're going to be taken down and out.
Right.
So what we will be doing, we will be having, if the sidewalk, suspension sidewalk is approved, we will have responsibility to hire a design firm, which should be paid for by DOT, hopefully, and they will look at a way of widening that aspect that we gain when we have the suspension sidewalk. And certainly landscaping will be a part of that. And we would want you to be involved through the Public Works Committee. Okay, thank you.
Next Public Works meeting is next Tuesday, 1 o'clock, City Hall, and every 2 weeks, except the months that have 5 weeks in them, and then it comes back. If you have any questions, send me an email, give me a call or whatever. I'll let you know when the next one is. Love to have you there.
We have personnel actions A through C. I'd accept a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve personnel actions A through C.
Been moved and seconded to approve those personnel actions. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Committee reports, Administrative and Finance, Bob and Caitlin.
Get there. Admin and Finance met February 10th, 1 o'clock, City Hall. Mayor Cotty, Caitlin, Bill, Misty, John, and myself were present. Old business item. The committee discussed surplusing a weapon from the police department that isn't being used. Because of the type of weapon, there is value to the gun collector market, which would result in revenue being generated for the city through the sale of the weapon. The committee recommends surplusing the weapon and restricting the sale of the weapon to an individual or company with a Class 3 federal firearm license. We also discussed Section 112.02 of city ordinances. This section addresses the requirement of pawnbrokers or second-hand stores to secure a license before operating. And the committee feels this licensing recommendation, this licensing requirement shouldn't apply to second-hand stores. The committee recommends removing second-hand stores from the licensing requirements of Section 112.02. The committee also recommends removing specific references to types of second-hand goods from Section 112.01. Definitions, second-hand goods dealers. This section goes overboard in identifying the types of second-hand goods that can be sold. Attempting to specifically list second-hand goods that can be sold will always miss something that is available for sale. We talked about grazing at the airport. We discussed using a land lease for property on the north and south side of the airport, so we'll continue that conversation. New business items. The mayor talked with the committee about the need to begin looking at how the city will replace the airport manager, who will be retiring in November. Some suggested ideas that are form a hiring committee, look at the length of training of the new manager, and possibly have Ed provide some consulting after his retirement. And the committee will continue to discuss the necessary steps to replace the airport manager. New business, the city discussed a request from the police department to change the rate of compensation received for hours actually worked on a holiday. Currently, employees are compensated at a rate of 2 times their hourly rate for hours worked on a holiday. The request is to increase that rate from 2 times to 2.5 times the employee's hourly salary. The concern is that employees who are required to work a portion of a holiday or the full holiday aren't receiving the full benefit of not working on a holiday. If there are employees who don't want to receive an increased rate of pay of 2.5 times their hourly salary for hours worked on a holiday, it was suggested to allow those employees to replace another day in their regularly scheduled work week with the hours they worked. The committee asked Misty to calculate for the next admin finance meeting the increase in salary dollars for calendar year 2019 if holiday hours worked would have been at the 2.5 times hourly rate. The committee will continue to discuss the request to change the rate of compensation for hours worked on holidays. We also discussed adding individual committee reports to specifically address recommendations from those committees and identify items that will be placed on future agendas for council consideration. This is an attempt to keep the public better informed about committee discussions and recommendations. We discussed combining the upcoming city election with the Hot Springs School District in Fall River County. After discussion, the committee recommends a combined election.
Excuse me, Bob, there's some noise out in the hallway. I'd ask that somebody go and please, so that everyone can hear what's being said. Thank you. Go ahead.
We discussed a request from Farmers Market to waive park reservation fees for 13 Fridays between July 10th and August 2nd. That would be 13 days at $20 a day for a total of $260. After discussion, the committee recommends not waiving the park reservation fees. We had a request from the Main Street, we discussed a request from the Main Street Arts and Crafts Festival to waive park reservation fees for 3 days from June 26th through June 28th. It would be 3 days at $20 a day for a total of $60. After discussion, the committee recommends not waiving the park reservation fees. We also discussed a recommendation from the Airport Advisory Committee to replace the fueling system at the airport. Support for the current fueling system will end on June 30th, 2020. The replacement cost for the new system is $14,295. That price includes a $1,995 trade-in for the current system. The committee recommends replacing the fueling system at the airports. We discussed refinancing the sales tax bonds for the Evans Plunge purchase. By refinancing the bonds, the city would save $2,225, 382 cents, and $225,382.09, and not extend the terms of the bonds or increase the payments. These would also be, there would also be a no out-of-pocket cost for the city. The committee recommends refinancing the Evans Plunge. And Misty, did I butcher that badly, or did I get it right? All right. Caitlin, have anything? Anybody else in the Zoom meeting?
Can you remind me if the committee recommends replacing the airport fueling system, if they talked about this year with the trade-in or during budget time next year?
This year with the trade-in, because the trade-in expired in June. It's expiring soon, so yes, we're recommending replacing it this year.
Can I ask a question? Didn't we just buy that system
Yes,
and we need a new one already?
yes.
Huh. Okay.
The next admin finance meeting will be March 9th, 1 p.m. at City Hall.
Thank you. Airport Advisory Committee, Bill.
Next Airport Advisory Committee meeting is Thursday, the 27th of February at 8 a.m. at the airport.
Thank you. Custer Fall River Regional Waste Management District, Ron.
Next meeting is 12th of March, 7 p.m. here at the Mueller Civic Center.
Thank you. Downtown Historic Preservation Commission.
I did not make it because I was really sick.
Okay.
And the next, real sick. And the next meeting will be the first Wednesday of, I don't know the date.
Okay. Evans Plunge Advisory Committee, Allison.
Evans Plunge Advisory Committee met February 13th at the Plunge. We continued discussions on what to do with updating our hot tubs, and we reviewed samples of different products that our members brought in, so I appreciate everybody bringing different ideas in. Tom has been tasked with putting together a cost estimate for the project, looking at different possibilities of products to use, and also deciding to either use our current hot tubs and putting a cost estimate to what it would take if we changed out the tubs themselves. Closure for the plunge is set for March 2nd through the 15th. And if you recall last meeting, I gave you all of those things that they were working on, so I will not give you the list of things again. It's a hefty list, they have a lot to do. We had a guest, Renee LaFrance, that came and along with our member Casey Crothers, that provided us a very in-depth list of ideas for our 130th anniversary and brought us up to date on what they were going with choosing the Umbrella Foundation and establishing a 501c3 Friends of the Evans Plunge Mineral Springs. And so we really appreciate those two for coming up with the extensive list that they came up with for fundraising ideas, and even considering creating a nonprofit to have to become Friends of the Evans Plunge. And we did not discuss youth memberships this time since we went into depth with with Renee's information. Our next meeting is going to be changed. It won't be on our normal time because it's going to be during closure. So our date will be March 19th at noon at Evans Plunge.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Parks, Recreation, and Beautification, Dave is not here. Planning and Zoning Commission, Allison.
Okay, so planning and zoning's meetings it was just last night. We had a long meeting. We ended at 9 o'clock. So the minutes are still in the works. So I will give a full report next meeting. But I do want to update, or I guess give a heads up to the council that you have your first PUD coming down the pipeline through the Mammoth site. And I'm just asking that all council members get as familiar as they can with the PUD because it opens up possibilities that we haven't had before. So if we're set on kind of the ordinances that we've had in RA districts or commercial districts, you're going to see that this is meant to create for innovation. And so I just want to make sure that everybody knows that this is coming. This is going to be our first one. And this is an important project for the Mammoth site, and that if we do our research and ask our questions, I think that we'll be able to get this project that will benefit Hot Springs, and it'll have the attention and discussion that it deserves. So just know that that's coming. And if you have any questions about PUD, I was part of the planning and zoning when when it first started to be discussed, and have seen it through all the way till approval. So if you have any questions, please let me know. It's planned unit development. Okay, yeah, and it's in our ordinances. If you go into it and look up our planned unit development, it's the last list on all the different zones that we have. It'll give you step by step what we'll be looking for. The Mammoth site put together a really nice plan, very thorough and detailed. And I have that if anybody has any questions about that as well. And we're looking at moving forward for them so that they can get this going.
Okay, great, thank you, Allison. Public Safety, Bill?
Public Safety met Wednesday, February 19th at City Hall at 1 p.m. Present were Mayor Cotty, myself, Bob, Caitlin, Captain Wainman, and Officer Schaefer. There's no update on the FEMA grants for the identified risks in the pre-disaster mitigation plan. The committee continued to discuss budgeting for a school resource officer, if the school board would also include funding for that position in their budget. Based on recommendations from Chief Close, the committee is considering recommending a 60% school and 40% city-funded proposal. Myself and Captain Wayman communicated that information to the School Board Safety and Security Committee at their regular meeting that was held after our Public Safety Committee meeting. If the school board decides to fund the position, a similar proposal will be brought to this council and included in the 2021 budget discussions. Captain Wayman reviewed the results of a meeting held between the county mental health attorney, local qualified mental health professionals, Sheriff Evans, Lyle Jensen from the Fall River County, Captain Wayman, Officer Schaefer, and myself. Progress is being made to simplify, standardize, and document the process for involuntary mental health commitments. This work is important because without it, one of our officers could be tied up for sometimes 8 to 10 hours. When the process works as it should, our officers can be back on patrol within 1 to 2 hours. The committee had its final discussion regarding the revision to the fireworks portion of the Fire Prevention and Protection Ordinance. We intend, if possible, to reference the website that lists the Black Hills area fire danger hazard that we will base our citations on. By referencing a website that the 3 local signs are set from, we believe we're communicating the freshest information possible. Our intent is to have a first reading available for this ordinance revision at the next council meeting. The committee had a short discussion about the potential for an ordinance addressing drones and other remote or small unmanned aircraft. As there is current legislation moving through the state legislature, we'll wait to see if the city needs any action on this or if we can utilize South Dakota codified law for any necessary enforcement actions. Under new business, under the police department report, the police department responded to a reported propane leak at the school on Saturday, February 15th. Chief Close was attending a basketball game that was just finishing up when that report came in and helped coordinate the evacuation of the facility. 2 on-duty officers and Captain Wayman, who was called out, provided road closure and traffic control for the incident. In other activities, a number of drills are being planned for both the State Home and the Hot Springs school system. In January, our police department responded to 500 calls. There were 11 accidents, 13 agency assists, 17 drug citations, 167 traffic stops, and 22 welfare checks, among the other many and varied calls that they responded to. Emergency Manager Frank Maynard had an agenda item that was to discuss a second severe weather siren to be placed near the bypass in Highway 18. However, he was notified that this was not an allowable expense under the Homeland Security grant, so that will not be taking place, and he'll be seeking another funding source for that. Captain Wayman brought a request to the committee to make southbound 16th Street at North University Avenue a 3-lane street, in which the 2 southbound lanes would be designated, one as a right turn only and the other one as a straight and left turn only. It's felt that this change would relieve a lot of traffic congestion right there at the school on 16th Street. We're going to have that street measured to make sure that it'll accommodate 3 lanes, and if so, we'll bring a resolution before this council to make those lane markings and add the proper signage. Based on the response to the reported propane leak at the school, as well as the number of suspected propane leaks reported and responded to by our police officers, it's recommended that all police department vehicles be equipped with portable combustible gas detectors, and that the officers be provided with the necessary training to utilize those, as this will improve emergency response safety and efficiency. The police department discussed a recent event at Custer and the need for a less lethal means to end a similar situation. Officer Schaefer and Captain Wayman reviewed such equipment with the committee. As we look to surplus the weapon that Councilman Nelson referred to from admin finance and the revenue it will provide, that could serve as a funding source for such a previously unbudgeted equipment array and would allow such a risk to be addressed with the best possible outcome. The committee conducted an informal after-action review of the response of various city departments that responded to the North River Street fire on the evening of February 17th. We found that all departments responded appropriately and professionally. And I want to personally thank the police, street, and water departments for all their individual efforts, and of course the Hot Springs Volunteer Fire Department and the many responding mutual aid companies. And I also want to acknowledge Mayor Cotty and Councilman Nelson for their presence, efforts, and supports throughout the night. Our meeting ended at 3 p.m. and our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 18th at 1 p.m. at City Hall.
Thank you. Public Works, Bob and Ray.
Public Works met on February 11th, 1 o'clock at City Hall. Mayor Cotty, John, Tracy, Scott, and myself were present. We had one new business item. The committee discussed the increased enforcement of illegal parking within the city by Scott, the police department, and the animal control officer to meet the requirements of Chapter 70, traffic regulations. The police department expressed a concern with enforcing Section 70.08B2. This section states it's unlawful to store or keep any motorized or non-motorized equipment, campers, motorhomes, boats, trailers, or other seasonal or recreational vehicles or devices along any city street. The section doesn't list a specific amount of time. The police department has recommended language be added to this section to address parking that exceeds 2 weeks at a time. The committee will look to adding the appropriate language to identify the length of time. Old business item, our brush piles. The committee discussed the burning of the brush pile at the landfill that was approved by the council. After discussions with South Dakota Wildland Fire, the decision was made to begin burning the brush pile on Wednesday, February 12th. The checklist recommended by the mayor was followed to ensure all necessary steps were taken prior to actually starting the pile on fire. On Tuesday, businesses along the bypass were notified that the burning of the pile would begin on Wednesday. Additional attention was paid to Fall River Hospital and Pine Hills. On Wednesday morning, one final phone call was made to Wildland Fire by Councilman Lukens to make sure the weather conditions were still favorable for the burn. Councilman Burris worked with the city's street department employees regarding the steps they should take to actually start the pile on fire. While the fire was actively burning, it was monitored off and on by the mayor, Councilman Lukens and Burris, John Gregory, the city administrator, employees from the street departments, the police departments, DAR from the volunteer fire department, and wildland fire folks. The fire burned through Friday, with the majority of the pile being consumed by late Wednesday. During the burn, the winds were favorable and the smoke tended to drift in a west to southwest direction, generally rising straight up and dissipating the higher gas. The burning of the brush pile could be summed up as very successful with no significant impact on the citizens and businesses of Hot Springs. A big thank you to everyone that was involved with the coordinating and actual burning of the pile. The committee discussed the ongoing issues surrounding the West Oak building. Quotes have been received from Albertsons Engineering to identify the options for saving the building and demolition of the building. A quote from RCS Construction has been received to address the recommendations from Albertsons Engineering. City employees constructed a handicap access ramp requested by the Department of Transportation for access around the portion of the sidewalk in front of the West Oak building that has been barricaded off for safety reasons. The city will continue to work through all necessary steps regarding the West Oak building. We also discussed hours of operation at the MRF. The permit for the MRF with the state of South Dakota states the MRF should be locked during hours there isn't supervision available. This requirement has the potential to impact the area currently used for disposal of trees, brush, and yard waste. Tracy will identify a specific portion of the MRF that's identified in the permit from the state to see if the area used for collection of trees, brush, and yard waste is actually in the boundaries of the permit. So discussions will continue on that. We talked about the repair work that is continuing at the wastewater treatment plant. The work has identified the need to replace piping outside the physical plant that wasn't included in the original quote or the most recent change order. This piping is failing because of its age and the environment it's in, and wasn't found until the contractor was attempting to connect the piping from the wet well to the piping beyond the wet well. Do we have an agenda item for that tonight? Did I miss anything for the folks that were there? Next Public Works meeting will be February 25th, 1 o'clock at City Hall, and that's next week. Public's welcome.
Okay, thank you, Bob, appreciate it. Southern Hills Economic Development, Caitlin?
I'm unaware that we've yet to schedule a meeting.
Okay. Southern Hills Golf Course Advisory Committee and Matt Volunteer Fire Department. Ron?
Next meeting will be the 10th of March at Hot Springs Volunteer Fire Department at 7 p.m. I just wanted to comment, I've been going to meetings with these guys for 3 years now, and I've always been impressed with the amount of training that they go through on their own time. They are paid professionals. And they definitely stepped up to the plate the other night, in my opinion.
Agreed. Thank you, Ron. Moving on in the agenda, we have before you Resolution 2020-8, a resolution to surplus city property. That's the 1981 Ruger AC-556 weapon. I would ask for a motion to approve surplusing that property.
I make a motion to surplus city property, 1981 Ruger AC 556.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to surplus that property. And are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
So you said in your committee report that they had a recommendation that it be sold to something specific, but I didn't catch what it was.
A
Class 3 upgrade.
Yeah, a dealer or a private citizen with a Class 3 federal firearm license.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have some discussion only on items on our agenda tonight under new business. First one, update regarding Hope Homes meeting. Allison?
John and I had the opportunity to sit down with Dean Hendrick with Holt Homes on February 6, 2020. The goal was to identify the barriers to the Canton Avenue project and problem solve them out in order to get the project moving forward again. Some items had already been addressed, such as the 2019 contractor license fee being carried over to 2020. It was identified that Holt Homes had had a number of different contact people within the city over the past year. That has led to varying information and conflicting standards for construction as defined by the RFP contract and the local building requirements. It was determined that the city administrator, John, would be the most appropriate contact, so Holt Homes is able to have one point of contact in hopes of streamlining all information. We discussed questions regarding building permits and drainage design that needed further clarification. The focus is to identify the requirements still needed and cross-check that information with the RFP and city ordinances. Once these issues are addressed and solidified, John will be in contact with Holt Homes and a final plan will be put into place as to any other information that is needed for permit requirements. From that point, John Gregory will work with Holt Homes on all aspects of the project. The focus is to be able to wrap up the project quickly and efficiently, and we will be able to we can look forward to the completion of the project and to be able to see the work over the last year of the city and Holt Homes of creating workforce housing come to fruition.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments for Allison? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item B, the potential dog park at Humaker Park. And Dave was heading that up, so we'll move that on to another meeting. And likewise with the potential donation of funds at the Puppy Plunge to go to the park development group. Allison, is there anything discussed at the
No, we were not aware that that was an idea, although I think it's a clever idea. I don't know if they would be, against it by any means, but we can see the correlation between the two. So.
Okay, and we'll continue to discuss that at a future meeting. Moving on to item D, we have a possible motion and discussion to set and change hours for the brush pile dump city maintenance facility. We want to be within compliance with DENR and control unauthorized dumping. Bob, can you, I guess, first of all, let me ask for a motion to change those hours.
I'd like to make a motion to table and send back to Public Works um, to set and change the hours for the brush pile dump at the city maintenance facility. And if we get a second, then during discussion, I can explain to you why I'd like to send it back to Public Works.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table item D. And Bob, go ahead with your discussion.
As I mentioned in my Public Works, Tracy, I'd ask him to look at the actual boundaries. This came about because of a statement in the permit that we have from DNR, so that's what I provided everyone tonight is an actual picture with the yellow outline of the boundaries that are defined in the permit, and the section from the permit itself that talks about access control. The operator shall maintain access controls at the site. These shall include a fence around the entire facility, lock gates, and then goes on to talk about signs. I think everybody's in favor of keeping it open 24/7 as it's had been, or as it has been. Previous council made the recommendation to open it up so that folks could dump there. I myself use it at night and on the weekends, so to restrict it to 7 to 4, Monday through Friday, I don't think serves the public well. My hope in identifying the area was that maybe the brush piles wouldn't be in the area and it would be a non-issue. We wouldn't have to approve changing them. As you can see, it turns out that they are within that. So I had a conversation with Tracy again today to ask if he would request from DNR how they would view that. The area that the brush piles are on aren't on top of any old cells, so we wouldn't be disturbing anything there. Tracy did send me an email. I haven't had a chance to go over it closely yet, but I think by taking that back to Public Works, I think we can find a resolution to this without having to restrict hours for the dump. So it just needs to cook some more in Public Works. And if it turns out that we are asking to restrict those hours, I think we need to say to you folks what the recommendations for those hours are, rather than asking you to approve a restriction not knowing what those restrictions are going to be. So that's the reason that I asked to send it back to Public Works for further discussion.
This boundary isn't accurate. We don't own up to the road. All this stuff on the left is Steve's Monics, or that new park. And halfway down the road is Steve's on the right side too, so this, I mean, everything on the, if you're looking at it like this way, everything on the top of the page does not belong to the city.
So that's another reason to discuss it, because again, my specific request to Tracy was go back to DENR, the boundaries that they identified in the permit. And DENR's response back to Tracy was, these are the boundaries. Well, I can't argue either way, Greg. I'm just telling you, this is DENR's response to our request to tell us what those numeric boundaries look like visually.
Well, it was this way until the city traded off that land.
Okay, so that's why I think it needs to have more discussion.
Okay, we do have then a motion to table item D. Is there any further discussion?
Can I ask a question at this point?
Go ahead, please.
Bob Paul on Schofield Street, Hot Springs. I'd like to reiterate on Bob's comments. I agree completely with having the dump with the extended hours. The other question, when this goes back to your committee, is not necessarily on the brush pile, that if those hours are going to be restricted. I occasionally like to pick up chips from out there for home use. Would that affect that area also, the chip piles?
Okay.
Any other discussion on item D? Hearing none, all those in favor of tabling item D signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E, then, we'll be looking at the wet well repair change orders, number 2, and you can see several items listed, both number 2 and number 3, items that were discovered, as Bob mentioned in his report, as the repairs have gone onward. We found more items that needed to be replaced or fixed. I would ask for a motion to approve item E.
Make a motion to approve Dean Kurtz Construction wet well repairs contract change order number 2 in the amount of $23,038 for the replacement of the underground piping outside the building leading from the clarifiers into the wet well. And number 3, a subtraction in the amount of $653, which is the net amount remaining when replacing fittings of $2,117 were added, and a credit of $2,770 was applied due to the deletion of secondary clarifier piping. The new contract amount, including these change orders, is $307,391.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve these change orders. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, Bob, what is the recommendation from Public Works?
Recommendation is to approve the change order.
Ask then all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We also have 2 individuals that have volunteered to be on our Historic Preservation Commission for a 3-year term. Casey Crothers and Deborah Walgren Johnston. I'd ask for a motion to approve appointing them to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Make a motion to appoint Casey Carruthers and Deborah Walgren Johnson to the Historic Preservation Commission for 3-year terms from 2020 to 2022.
Been moved and seconded to make these appointments. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We also have travel request for our finance officer, Misty Summers-Walt, to attend the Black Hills Area Finance Officers Association meeting in Spearfish. I'd accept a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve travel training request from Finance Officer Misty Summers-Walton to attend the Black Hills Area Finance Officers Association meeting in Spearfish on 3/3/20.
Second.
Then moved and seconded to approve this travel and training. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion?
I didn't catch who did the second. Thank you.
All those in favor then signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We also have a motion and discussion to approve travel and training requests for Chief Close to attend the Police Officers and Sheriffs Association Spring Conference. That's in Deadwood. I'd accept a motion to approve that travel and training.
I'd make a motion to approve travel training request from Chief Close to attend the South Dakota Police Chiefs and Sheriffs Association Spring Conference in Deadwood on April 21st through April 23rd.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve this training. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we also have travel and training for our water department, Sean Heil, Tad Harder, Gordon Wempen, and Pete Miles, to get certification and training and testing in Rapid City. I'd accept a motion to approve that travel and training.
Make a motion to approve the travel training request from the Water Department, Sean Heil, Tad Harder, Gordon Wempen, and Pete Miles for certification training and testing in Rapid City, January 28th, 2020 to January 30th, 2020.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve this training and travel. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is our finance officer report. Misty?
Thank you. It's been an interesting Thursday, Monday, Tuesday this week. The rescheduled meeting has kind of thrown us all off. So I'm going to keep this short because the meeting's already going kind of long, and my computer must be tired too because it died. It's never had any problem holding a charge through the meetings, and this hasn't been excessively long, but I think it's an indication we're about done tonight. I have not reviewed the Herald Star today, but Brett did ask if I'd be willing to write an article about the election, the upcoming election and the open seats, and I did, and I think that that was supposed to be in today's paper, so I encourage you to read that. And anyone interested in filling any of those positions, please ask, get information and look into it, and if you find that it's the right fit for you, please do it. We're busy and there's a lot going on, but it's real rewarding, believe it or not. And I think that anyone up here would be happy to speak to anybody interested and give you their views on how rewarding this kind of work could be. So please look at that article, please consider, and ask questions if you have them. For this council, I want to remind you of the deadline coming to RSVP for the district meeting in New Underwood in April. And then also ask if any of you are interested in attending, besides Bill, who's already responded, the legislative Cracker Barrel scheduled for this weekend, Saturday, between 2 and 4 at the Stay USA. I'd like to do a notice of quorum if we're going to have more than 4, but I'd only heard back from one by email, so I wanted to confirm that I didn't need to do that. No need doing it if we're not going to have it.
I'm going to try to attend, so that's 2.
Okay.
I might go.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do one tomorrow so that no one has to not attend. Our IT is just actually started upgrading workstations to Windows 10. Most of our workstations are Windows 7. There's a cost of that of $125 per computer. I'm waiting for an inventory of them for all the computers throughout the city that are going to need that. So just a heads up, we'll be talking about that in admin finance, and you may be seeing that as a discussion item on a future agenda. Many operating systems are no longer supported, and Windows 7 needs to go away. There's not a deadline, it doesn't have to happen, but for efficiency, it is important that we do upgrades, so we'll be looking to do that. We've been working in the finance office on insurance renewals. Those come up for our Wellmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield, our Vision, which is through Alesis, and our Dental, which is through Delta Dental. Our open enrollment is in May, and we'll start meeting with the providers on the renewals in the next couple weeks. I would have hoped to get farther with my annual reports and my analyticals and receivables and processes in February than I have, but we still have plenty of time. It's not due to you till May. But February's been an interesting month. I think the whole town has felt that, not just City Hall. We have been, although I'm not as far as I would like, I have plenty of time, and I have been working on items and actually began the property tax analyticals and the special assessment analyticals this week. We'll be required to start sending these reports to our auditors, and now that we've approved the last batch of 2019 payables, we're going to finalize those numbers and start sending those things over to the auditors. We have completed our annual SAM renewal, which is the system for awards management. It's very important that our SAM renewal get done every year. This is how we receive federal funding. Many grants can't even be applied for without an active SAM registration, and we have gotten that completed for this year. And then also just recently completed the annual survey of local government finances. We've learned about a new requirement through the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Act. There's a clearinghouse and procedures for all CDL drivers of a municipality to be registered and then annually be checked through this clearinghouse. We'll be talking a little bit more about it, but that's a new process. It was effective December. It was passed in December, effective for January, and we're just trying to figure that out because we do have a number of CDL drivers that are considered in those safety certified positions and will need to be run through this clearinghouse. That's all I have for my update tonight.
Okay, thank you, Misty. Just a couple of things too. It seems like fires have been the topic of the last couple of weeks, from brush piles to significant fire in our city. First of all, I just again want to thank everybody for the work done on burning the pile of brush at the main in charge. I think we had a good plan. Our city employees did an excellent job. Bob, you, Bill, and Daley were on top of things, and really appreciate, Bob, your coordination with the local businesses. I think that really helped, particularly one of the businesses said, hey, that's the first time anybody's ever bothered to ask us, and I think that says a lot for the work you did. Bill, again, thank you very much for all your expertise in helping us do that safely. We also want to thank South Dakota Wildland Fire. You picked a good day. Smoke went in the perfect direction, and a little bit more smoke on the second day, but I think there was minimum impact to the community, and that was, we were blessed by that. This week has been a very emotional week, and I know that there's a lot of businesses and families that have been personally affected by the fire that we just went through. And I would ask us as a council and us as a community to continue to keep these people in our prayers, our thoughts. The investigation as to the cause of the fire is still ongoing. It'll go into next week. The insurance carriers, along with the fire marshal, have been on site. I would encourage people to please do not cross those police lines. You are subject to trespassing, and to have, just for safety's sake, you just don't want people inside those lines, and also possibility of bothering the inspection by removing evidence. We did get, I did get a personal call from Governor Noem, relaying to the community that she was thinking of us and offered to assist in the recovery through economic development efforts wherever possible. I also received a call to our community from Representative Dusty Johnson, who expressed his concern and well wishes for our recovery. Fortunately, we had no injuries or no fatalities as a result of the fire. As Ron mentioned, our fire department did an outstanding job. That training that they've been going through paid off. We had Fall River Emergency Management. Frank Maynard was on scene and did an excellent job of helping coordinate certain aspects, keeping the highway open, diverting traffic, and watching over the outcome. Jerome Harvey from the Pennington County Fire Protection Office came down and helped coordinate getting other fire departments here to relieve our firemen. And I want to thank Jerome personally for all of his efforts, and local communities that sent their firefighters to help us here in Hot Springs. Our police were on the scene. They did an outstanding job in controlling traffic. We had ambulances. Our maintenance people came out with the sand truck, cold weather and water on streets formed some very slippery conditions, and they were there to handle that. And just even our water crews continually checked the pumps through the night to ensure that we were getting adequate water in our tanks to make sure that we had water available for the firefighters. I was told that the hydrant pressure remained good throughout the evening, and that assisted in controlling and keeping the fire controlled or contained to the main buildings that it was. So all in all, it was bad situation, but a very good response, and we were blessed by that. Now is the time that we focus on the future. And I'm reminded of a Bible story I heard way back in Sunday school as a youngster about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They refused to bow down to evil. And as a result, they were thrown in a fiery furnace. They didn't let that defeat them. There was a fourth man that joined them in that furnace. And the Bible tells us when they got out of the furnace, they didn't even smell like smoke. Now I hope that fourth man will walk with us as we go through this recovery process. I am pleased Greg Gunwald has got his spark back, his vision. He's planning ways that he can rebuild. I've talked to, I understand the powers have found a place to live, and that's outstanding. I'm not sure about the China Buffet, what their plans are. I'm sure they're waiting for the insurance adjuster to come through and assist with them. But we want to continue to keep moving forward. I grew up in Lead, and in the days of my youth, the big thing in Lead was the Homestead Gold Mine. Both my parents worked for that gold mine. My grandfather got killed in that gold mine. The ore that they got the gold out was blasted out by dynamite, mucked out, carried up to the surface, crushed, rolled with ball bearings, treated with chemicals, and heated to a very high temperature to burn off all of the impurities. And I, on a couple of occasions, had a chance to go and watch the refining process as that molten gold was poured into a mold. And when that molten metal cooled and you saw the luster of that gold, it reminded me of why men risked their lives to rush to California, to rush to Deadwood, in 1876 to chase after that metal. Our community's been under fire this past week, but let's let it be a refining fire as we ensure that the best is yet to come for Hot Springs. And I just want to encourage all of us to hang in there, continue to keep the families infected, and we will move forward and we will recover. Thank you. At this time, I would accept a motion to go into executive session for personnel. There will be no action subsequent.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll be going into the annex. Is that right, Carl?
Yes.
Misty, we convened at 8:35. We're reconvening, calling the meeting to order at 8:48. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, adjourned. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.